I am excited to introduce our next speakers. Arni and Matt run the global field engineering teams for VMware and Dell and have tremendous experience working with customers. Their teams assist clients by helping them build their roadmap for modern app and platform modernization using the Dell and VMware Tanzu cloud native portfolio. Take it away, Arni and Matt.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bob. And appreciate you giving us the post-break time slot. We owe you for that one.
Do you guys want me to drive your slides or you want to share?
If I can share, it'll be a little easier.
I'll do that right now. I'll let you share.
Thank you.
Awesome. While you're doing that, Arni, we wanted to bring a little bit of a real world perspective to a lot of the conversation. I think Matt and Deepak teed it up well, and Bob as well, on some of the challenges we see and the value that exists with bringing this all together. But I want to put that in real terms, because as the deployment and adoption has accelerated, so have problem and new opportunity statements. And so I think it's good to kind of give you a little bit of a primer on what we've seen. And then we'll jump into where modern infrastructure plays in and how that becomes equally as important in the future as it is today. So Arni, I'll turn it over to you, buddy.
Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it. Super happy to be here. I see an amazing crowd, even though I can't see everyone, but just the numbers are incredible. Great questions from the team. You've already heard a lot about Tanzu and the impact it has on developers, etc. I wanted to zoom back a little bit, speak a little bit about containers, number one, Kubernetes, digital transformation, and the role that Tanzu plays in that space, right? So number one, now Docker as a company has gone through a lot of transition, but the technology they brought to the market, right, in the form of containers, is here to stay. And there's good reasons why, right? It gives you great consistent environments as you go from one environment to the other. Extremely lightweight, right? And highly portable, right? And that's the reason why we see it in a lot of places. Now you combine that with modern application developer frameworks like Spring Boot, and we see a lot of clients modernizing their applications. Could be all the way to microservices, not necessary, but taking your large applications, finding ways in which you can modernize it. And Spring has found itself to be an incredible tool to make developers extremely productive. There's a very large talent pool. Even some of the latest, greatest fintech companies use Spring Boot. So when you combine both of those incredible technologies like containers and Spring Boot, we're seeing a huge influx of containers inside our clients' data centers. Right, microservices or not, the number of containers that are sitting inside a client environments are running in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands at this point. The industry has woken up, for the last 3 or 4 years and said, hey, Kubernetes has become the de facto container orchestrator. There've been many, in the space, but Kubernetes has come up as a primary way in which you manage all these hundreds and thousands of containers.
So, Arni,
yes, go ahead. Sorry.
One thing, just to interrupt you. I think Matt Baker said it really well. There's this growing divide between the developer community now and the traditional IT teams, and right, how they help support each other through these new kind of orchestration, automation, agents and platforms. Where does Tanzu fit in that spectrum?
Yeah, great point. Yeah, and I didn't hear Matt say that. It's an excellent point. The dogs and the cats. A lot of what we are seeing, right, from our advanced clients that are well on the path towards digital transformation, building modern experiences for their clients. They're looking at frameworks like Spring, frameworks like Kubernetes, using those to fuse those teams closer together, right? Underpinning a lot of these transformations is Spring and Kubernetes, right? And it's an interesting perspective for a lot of our clients who are now saying, wow, I have Spring, right? Or I have containers in Kubernetes. Now I have a lot of existing applications also running on VMs, right? VMs are not going anywhere. And more importantly, 8% of your containers are running on VMs again. So you now have this mixed mode environment of hundreds and thousands of containers managed by Kubernetes running on VMs. Tens of thousands of VMs managed by vSphere. How do you reason through all of this? How do you make sense? How do you bring it all together? How do you manage it really well? And Bass, if you heard him earlier in the day, spoke about the day two experience really being important. It's not about just getting it to work on a laptop somewhere. You need it to work across a large scale of applications and data centers. So Tanzu number one, from an offer standpoint, has been very specific. Is there a way in which we can help manage containers and VMs under the same substrate in a unified way? And I honestly feel that this is an incredible innovation that VMware brought to the table by modifying and extending vSphere, the core vSphere that runs 99% of the data centers in the world, to now have Kubernetes dial tone, number one. Number two is now you can manage those containers and VMs under the same substrate. So now you can have unified teams doing dev, DevOps, VMs, containers, modern apps, or existing heritage apps, right? All under one unified operating model. Right? That's a huge shift we are seeing. The second thing is, for a lot of our clients who are saying, hey, I need to do this fast and I need to get running on the data center really quick. Matt mentioned this as well. Everything about vSphere 7 and above, right, in the Tanzu portfolio runs natively on the VX stack, right? Could be powered by VCF, the VMware Cloud Foundation, or not, right? Depending on how aggressive you want to be in the hyperconvert space. But Tanzu has already been deployed. You heard the story from Vijay just before this. VX, the VX stack has been the underpinning. And the dream eventually for the VMware Dell combined team here is you walk in, you plug in the power, right? You bring the rack in, and in a few hours later, you can now start to build modern applications using Spring or others, right? Riding on top of the Tanzu stack, right? Which is completely a game changer in my opinion, of course. And I'm slightly biased when I say that.
Arni, a lot of conversation about hyperconverged and VxRail. We saw a good post there in the chat and Q&A panel. But it's not just limited to the infrastructure as a stack per se. You've got these elements of public cloud, multi-cloud, networking, all which are playing a new and different role through the abstraction of these applications into containers and what that means for Tanzu being the glue that interconnects it all. Give it a little bit more specific, if you don't mind, on some of the other components.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's impossible to be in IT in the year 2020 and not have some line of sight into the public cloud, right? 90+% inside the global enterprise, the applications are still running in the data center, and they'll remain for that for a long time. So hybrid cloud is real. But now you speak about all these, you have the optionality of running all these containers in the data center, but what about the public cloud? So Tanzu from day one has natively supported running those same consistent container fabric for modern applications just as well in the VX stack in the data center, powered by vSphere, or it can run on any public cloud, right? For all the same reasons. You want a consistent container experience, right, on any cloud. You want to be pure open source. You want it to be easily manageable. So we are extending the same value of Tanzu Kubernetes Grid to be available on any single cloud. And we've done a lot of work with a lot of these cloud players to make that consistent experience available. For our more advanced customers that have been on this journey now for a year or so, what they've noticed is as follows, right? So now you have hundreds and thousands of containers on-prem, right? Hundreds and thousands of containers in a variety of the public clouds, all of them orchestrated by some kind of Kubernetes dial tone. How do you now go around managing the life cycle of all of this, right? Backups, restores, policy management, just straight up keeping it going. And echoing the point that Baz made earlier, day two becomes crucial, right? You're not building a modern app just on a laptop. You need to run them at scale in a hybrid cloud fashion. So Tanzu Mission Control essentially is the global control plane that kind of helps you manage your containers, applications, workloads on the data center, in the public cloud, anywhere you choose to, right? So for the folks that are in the room here that are operators, right, platform operators inside the infrastructure, think of it as your single or your first pane of glass to help you manage essentially all of these workloads, no matter where they are, right? And we're seeing great adoption of this control plane technology in the customer base. Now, the Tanzu portfolio is big. We only touched upon two of them today, right? So vSphere and Kubernetes we spoke about. We spoke about Tanzu Kubernetes Grid on any public cloud. We spoke about Tanzu Mission Control to help you manage it. But there's so much more inside the Tanzu portfolio. I know Craig and others are coming down later on the agenda to walk more about the details, about the portfolio. But suffice it to say that we are not here just to throw, here's Kubernetes is going to solve all your problems, right? Here's Spring that's going to solve all your problems. We're trying to make sure when we work with our clients, what is a value model? How do you work applications down? How do you look at it from saying, what's the business problem? What applications are we building? How are we then running this on a variety of infrastructures? Could be on the data center, it could be in the public cloud, in your hybrid cloud setup. But how are we getting more releases? There's a lot of talk about speed, but enterprise IT gets worried about speed, not because they don't want to go fast, because when you go fast, sometimes you break things. So how do you break that zero-sum game between speed, stability, and security? And I've never spoken to a single CIO that has said, I want all these attributes of speed and stability and security, but I want to spend more, right? So how do you manage the costs, keep the cost flat or even lower while still being able to drive these outcomes? So a lot of what Tanzu is about is bringing that to the table. Now, Chad's going to speak about this right after this. It's always fun to be ahead of Chad. Chad's going to speak a lot more about the value that our customers are seeing, the value model that Chad and team have taken to expand on this, saying, how do you look at business down, apps down, and infra up view to essentially drive the whole story? So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a quick view from how are clients thinking about containers, your peers, right? Thinking about containers, modern applications powered by Kubernetes, in the data center powered by Dell, or in the public cloud powered by any of your chosen cloud partners you have.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Arni.
Thanks.
Thank you, Matt.
Great.
Absolutely.
The Matt-Arni duo is the dynamic duo that everybody loves to see. So it's really nice to now have you both be presenting to a public audience. So really appreciate your time and really appreciate Matt Dunfee, who is our new Tanzu executive sponsor and is really changing the game for Tanzu and Dell Tech.